and see how parents are coping. Our Karina Mitchell spoke with Bankrate's Chief Financial Analyst, Greg McBride.
In about half of cases, 49%, it had something to do with shelter. That could be help with the rent payments. It could be living at home rent-free or with reduced rent. It could be help in buying that first home. But close behind that, 48% said it was just for everyday expenses, groceries, utilities. And then in a third of cases, they said that they had received assistance that didn't have any particular strings attached to it. It wasn't earmarked for a specific purpose. And so you're probably thinking, well, what about like student loans and everything, all that debt? That was actually much lower on the list. Only about 21% said they had received assistance that was earmarked for debt repayment.
Yeah, that's actually surprising. I expected that to be a little bit more prominent. But, how are adults coming up with this money? Where are they drawing it from? Because it's a tight economy right now. Inflation is, at a 40-year high as well.
It is. And now what we do see, when you see 61% of parents that either are currently or have in the past provided assistance, there's a high level of willingness to do so. So the sacrifices that we see people making, it tends to be their own emergency savings or their process of paying down or paying off debt or even other financial milestones. What was very interesting and frankly a bit encouraging was that last on the chopping block, retirement savings. 37% said they would or have in the past sacrificed their retirement savings in order to help their adult children. That's down from 50% 5 years ago. So I think it's certainly encouraging that parents are appropriately prioritizing retirement, which is coming one way or the other.
Was there any information about just how much more parents are having to shell out? People like me, we have kids in their 20s. They've graduated a few years ago, and I'm part of the Generation X generation. So compared to 20 or 30 years ago, are we paying more than baby boomers, for example?
We didn't get into dollar amounts, but what was particularly revealing was that Gen X parents were considerably more likely than boomer parents to either currently being or have in the past provided financial assistance to their adult children. On the recipient side, millennials and Gen Z, they were equally likely, 42% to have received it. So, some of that higher incidence of providing assistance by Gen X parents, some of that I think is just a byproduct of demographics. Gen X parents are late 40s or in their 50s. Boomer parents are in their 60s and 70s. And so, the adult children of Gen Xers may skew a little bit younger and be in this environment where housing affordability is so tough. So the other thing that was interesting was those that received financial assistance at some point in their lives, it was more than twice as high for Gen Xers as it was for baby boomers. So, the Gen Xers that received that financial assistance at some point, we did see a higher propensity that they're paying that forward to their own kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And being part of that Gen X sort of generation, we felt the pressure during the recession, the 2008, 2009 recession. So I'm wondering, what sort of respite is there for our lot and for all of these parents and guardians that are shelling out this money? Is there any respite in sight? Because, interest rates don't seem to be looking like they're going to come down anytime soon either.
You're right about the interest rates, that's for sure. They're not going to come down soon enough or fast enough, I think, to bail anybody out. But, when we look at the primary uses that recipients are doing with this money, things that are related to shelter, everyday expenses, that aligns with the housing affordability issues, the rent affordability issues that are so widespread, as well as the persistent inflation. So I don't see a material change on that front in either of those anytime soon. I don't know that there's a one-size-fits-all answer to this. I think a lot of it just kind of boils down to the relationship, between the parent and their adult child. The one thing that is important to stress is with regard to parents and their retirement savings, that drawing boundaries around that, putting a fence around that's not something you're going to sacrifice, either your existing retirement savings or the ability to continue to save, because retirement's coming one way or the other. And stats have shown that in about half of cases, it ends up being sooner than people were planning for, and increasingly at a timing that was not their choice, whether that's due to health or downsizing, those type of things. So much like in the discussion about funding college, the old adage, kids can borrow to go to college, parents can't borrow to retire. I think that same adage applies in this sense, in the respect that parents need to put a fence around the retirement savings. There's definitely a very high willingness of parents to help their adult children, but I think that's one of the boundaries that's worth drawing. And on the other end of that, I think this is going to vary tremendously. I mean, even somebody who graduated with a great degree that makes them very employable, but if they go to a high cost of living place like New York City, for example, even then they may still be coming to mom and dad every month for the first year or two of their career until their earnings start to ramp up, just given the high cost of living.